Hello, and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and The Fool.
So we recorded 2 episodes. They were pretty good, I thought.
Yeah.
And then we lost them all, but we didn't panic because we know how to recover that. But it's been a while, and we did the exact wrong thing again. And it wasn't exactly our fault because we knew what to do, but it said it could recover it, and by attempting to listen to it, it lost everything.
Yeah.
So, I think we can do like a summarized version of each episode. Like we'll do 2 shorter episodes, but hopefully with the same amount of content, just less pausing and confusion and
more
roaming
concise.
around. Yeah, because we have our thoughts figured out now. So I thought we'd start with you went to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Without a vaccine passport, which they require in BC, and you can talk about your experience there.
So, because of bureaucracy, basically, I couldn't get my vaccine passport in a timely manner. And so I went to Vancouver under the full knowledge that I would be unable to go to restaurants and certain public conventions. But I did bring a proof of vaccination that we originally got, which I think most countries did, which is a piece of cardboard basically saying, here's where you got, here's what it did. And I remember them even telling me, hold on to this is your permanent record now. And so I went out with that thing. But when I got onto the airplane to go to Vancouver, I was basically told, you better have it when you come back, like the proper one on your phone, because we don't know if you'll get back, but it's not mandated for airplane travel yet.
Oh, and it's important to point out, you tried to get it.
Yes, I tried.
And it didn't work for you for some reason.
Yeah.
It's not like you just went on without one.
No.
Yeah.
No, I tried to get it.
Not that I wouldn't be against that personally, but yeah. You tried to get it. It didn't work. They said, sorry, this is going to take a little while. Yeah. Can you wait like 2 weeks? And you said, I'm leaving tomorrow. So
yeah.
And not really an option.
Yeah. So I get to Vancouver and so it's fine, get to Vancouver. And then I'm thinking, like, I'm a little hungry right now, but I can last like a bit of food on the plane. And by the thought in my head, I can't go to any restaurants because of this card. So I'm under the impression I'm going to have to go to holes in the walls basically to eat. Anyways, time continues on. And after doing some stuff with family there, decided to go to a restaurant. Tried to get into the restaurant, and a person's like, okay, I explained to him basically. I go up to him and say, this is all I have. This is the best I have. I'm trying to get it. I can't get it right now. This is my ID. And he looks at it and basically says, this isn't good enough for most places. However, this is all you have. You look like a trustworthy fellow. So just this once, I'll let you into the restaurant. This is the restaurant in our hotel that we're going to. So it's like, yeah, just this once. But no other place will do this. So you better have the papers ready basically for later. So that's fine. And then the next day, no, it's that night, actually. We go to a light festival, which is basically really pretty light displays. And we get there, and I show them the paperwork. And my dad this time says, basically, he's from the Yukon, this is what they have. And the person there just sort of accepted it. And that was the one case where the person there was just like, yeah, okay, makes sense, let us in. Then the next day, have to go to a restaurant for breakfast, because you're traveling, you can't go buy groceries and cook in your hotel. And the person basically says, all right, that's not good enough. No other restaurant will let you in, but just this one's just here. We'll let you in, but you better have your papers. And basically it continues like that throughout the rest of my trip until I have to fly back home. But every single time I basically tell them this is the best I can do. And through the goodness of, I guess, human nature, it's like, yeah, I can understand. I see what's happening. He's trying. Like, he has this thing. It's his proof. He just doesn't have the official thing. So it's good enough. And then coming back home, it's talk to the flight attendant. She says, that isn't good enough. Security's checking for it. They're doing random checks. So you might get stopped. But you have to go home. So I'll do what I can. Here's your basically thing. But we actually had to like have a good 5-minute talk. And I was basically saying like, I don't know what to do about this. What can you do for me? Almost asking us, what do I do next then if this doesn't work? And she just said, well, try to get through security. If they catch you, who knows what will happen, was basically the exchange.
Yeah, so she said, well, good luck, I'll let you through, but just this once, and because.
Yeah, and even before that, because I was waiting on the email saying, hey, here's your thing, and then you can do the process. Because a lot of the times, people basically said, oh, you don't have it. well, it's super easy. Just go into your phone and get it. But it isn't super easy for us in the Yukon because we have the most ridiculous software oversight ever in its design. Like, actually, I've talked to people. It's a ridiculous software oversight. So they're even trying to be helpful. So this is how you can guess. I can't get it. Okay, then here's the next step. Luckily, I get on the plane, but still very much panic getting onto the plane. And the whole time, it's like, oh, I don't know if I'll be able to go here. Maybe it won't work this time. But somehow it worked every single time. But it's still that fear of it won't work this time. And
security didn't stop you, right?
Yeah, security didn't stop me.
And then the gate didn't stop you.
Yeah, the gate didn't stop me because some gates actually do check. I looked up after effects. Some gates do check, and then it's like, oh, what happens there?
You can't go home.
Yeah.
You are now homeless in Vancouver. Good luck.
Well, Victoria.
Yeah.
I think that's slightly better than being homeless in Vancouver.
Maybe. Yeah, probably.
Also, I know people in Victoria.
Yeah. So you know when we were in Japan, actually, and we saw that one homeless woman.
Yeah.
And everyone was giving her sort of wide berth, looking at her weird, kind of angrily almost. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
Okay, it was at nighttime. We were going up to that park we walked around in, and there was this woman, and she was just kind of lying near a staircase, and when we got back, she was gone. Remember that?
No.
Okay. Well, what I didn't know was, so we were in Tokyo, the biggest city in Japan.
Yeah.
The entire population of Japan, I think it is, has 5,000 homeless people. It's very rare.
How?
I don't know, but whatever they're doing... Well, actually, I think I have an idea. A lot of homeless people are due to, like, 40% or something are gay, for one thing. So just from that, you can sort of extrapolate. A lot of times it's because of because you got kicked out of... That was a joke of conflation, because most homelessness is caused by mental illness. Yeah. But it's also caused by...
getting kicked out
of your home, falling out with your parents. But I imagine in Japan, there's much more a culture of... Look, because you have like a family home, so it's quite a bit bigger for one thing. So you say, okay, we'll stick them in that section, and just you can't come to our section, and we'll take care of you because it's our duty. Yeah. But we don't want to see you. So I imagine there's a lot of...
Yeah, well, actually, generational homing probably does help because your family's lived in that house for, well, I mean, because of World War II and firebomb, but like they've lived in that house for the last 3 generations.
When we were in Japan, the homelessness was more around 15,000. So it's gone down sharply in the last 5-10 years. Yeah. And I think part of that's probably because their population is just declining. Yeah. So they have a declining population. They don't have high immigration. Yeah. So the entire population of the country is going down. Like in Canada, we have a rapidly declining population, but we also have very high immigration. So we're actually well, we have lower immigration than most places, but it's enough to keep us actually rising slightly, I believe. Yeah. We have some of the strictest immigration laws in the world, but I guess a lot of people can pass them because we only take a very small amount of refugees, but we allow people to come in who are highly talented. Yeah. So if you get a bunch of Chinese people and Indian people who are highly talented... Then...
Well, the highly talented is also questionable because...
our grandparents moved here.
No,
they're great.
You know, basically, why it's questionable is the countries do the tests to check for the highly talented. And so there's a level of corruption in both China and India where you pay $4,000...
Wait, Canada doesn't do it?
No, Canada doesn't. It's the country basically says... this is for school. So, this is especially prevalent in Yukon. Yeah. At the Yukon University, basically, you have to have a proof that you can speak English and you can do English to a level.
Yeah, and you have to take the English proficiency exam.
Yes. Yeah. However, they do that in their country. Then they pass it, and the country sends it here, and then they travel. So they don't travel here, do it, and then it's get
My friend's ex-girlfriend... She didn't have a very good mark on it, and it actually limited the university she could go to.
Yeah, well, Yukon also has a really low score.
Right. She didn't go to the Yukon. Yeah. She went to... Well, she couldn't go to Victoria.
Yeah, but so it has a really low score, so it's easier to get here. But we are actually having problems during the time as a student in my English class in various different classes where the teachers were getting so upset that their students actually didn't speak English and didn't understand them. And it was a massive problem that... Like 20% of all students in first-year classes didn't speak sufficient enough English to pass or participate in courses.
Wow. So she was fine with English, but she only got a 3 on the test.
Yeah.
You need a 4 to go to most universities. Yeah. And for the prestigious ones like Queen's or UBC or Victoria, potentially, you need a 5. And then 6 is the best you can get.
I have a default 6 on that test.
Really?
Yes.
So because you can't take the test, they give you top marks?
Yes.
There's the corruption.
I did a different kind of test for it.
Right. Because, I mean, reading comprehension is part of it.
Yeah.
Which... What was I reading recently? Did you know that... Oh, it's a huge spoiler for the Dresden Files. But there's a character who dies.
Yeah.
And I had no idea they died in the way they did. But I was rereading. I was like, wait, what? They just die like a pointless death. I thought they had died like fighting in an epic battle, and they just die randomly off screen, basically. Yeah. It's like, wait, what? And this happens to me all the time with books where some character dies. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess you just did a reading comprehension type thing. And
anyways, immigration.
Yeah.
Try and not get... sorry, you're talking about Japan's homelessness.
Yeah. Well, that was just related to you being homeless in Vancouver. But you got back because every person you talked to was a human.
Yes.
And so what we talked about before was...
Well, I was actually really worried I was going to encounter a Karen. Like, the customer service side, like the person is like, I don't know.
Or like a person who follows the letter rather than the spirit.
Yeah, a person follows the letter, or...
Because that was the thing.
Antagonist. An antagonist or a person follows the letter.
You weren't saying, you have to respect my right, I'm not vaccinated, I'm going to go in. You were saying, look, I'm vaccinated, I'm not a risk... Because here's the thing. You don't want to get vaccinated. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But you are potentially a risk to the other customers in the store. And you might be a tiny risk or no risk at all because they're vaccinated. But as a store owner, you let this person in on faith. Someone gets sick and dies in your store. At the very least, you feel bad.
Yeah.
You might not be in any trouble, but you feel bad. And so there is a degree of wanting people to be not ill. And a vaccination is an easy shorthand for not ill, although it isn't flawless by any means.
Yeah.
And it might actually be... I don't even know if it matters at all. Like, you're safe, which is great, but I don't know how much it actually matters for keeping everyone else. I think it does help quite a bit, because I think it reduces it by, like... I'm not going to say numbers, because I'll be wrong.
Yeah.
But I think it does help. But there is that, the store owner, from their perspective, you got to be like, yeah, okay, fine, fair enough.
Well,
a lot of the time... you were coming to them and saying, look, I did it, I can't prove it, but I did it.
Yeah, well, even I have this card, this is the proof I have. It's not the proof you want, because you want this code.
Yeah.
But this, I feel like my card, honestly, is better proof than the code, because they just look at the code and it's like, yeah, that looks like one of those square codes, and I could take a picture. But my card has what type of vaccine I had, where I got it, signature, and date.
I said way back when they were talking, like way back when they were starting to introduce this whole vaccine passport, that there's only 3 people that want this.
Yeah.
Power-hungry people, idiots, and forgers. Because, so the power-hungry people... They want more control of the populace, to know where they are, to force them to do things, to create 2 classes of people, to force them to do what they want.
Yeah.
Force them to take medication. It's insidious. Like, they were admitting in the UK that that's actually what they wanted to do with this whole vaccine passport, was force people to take the vaccination, which we knew. We had figured, like, it was obvious, and then they finally admitted it.
Yeah.
So then the second one is idiots, because you don't realize... why this is being done. This isn't being done to protect you, because part 3, it's very easy to forge. Now, going back to part 2, so it's not to protect you, because the people that were going to be decent human beings are going to be decent human beings, whether or not you force them to. The people who are not going to be decent human beings and stay away when they're sick or lie about stuff, this isn't going to stop them. It's not going to change anything, because you need, like, Singapore levels of law enforcement in order for this to work.
Yeah.
So, you get...
Thanks.
You get point 3. I just raised my middle finger for 3.
Counting with the thumb for number 1.
Yeah. So, for point 3, you have the forgers. So, you have a QR code that you scan, right? First of all, you need a scanner. So, most people, you can just show an image to. Because, like, your friend's image, because... they're not going to... like, does everyone own a scanner? No.
Well, your phone's a scanner, but are they going to bother?
Yeah. Does everyone know how to use a QR code? Like, they'll probably learn.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, I lined this up. They already got the... they have a QR code there. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Now, this is a way they can... so, in Canada, at the very least, and in most countries, you have a medical record. So what you can do is you can look up all the information. Like, whenever I get a vaccine, they know every vaccine I've ever gotten because it's all in a database. That database could be accessed by everyone. So if you were in Vancouver, you could be like, well, here's my database. Just look at it and there's proof. But they don't do that. And the reason they don't do that is for privacy, because you can't just give away people. You have a right to privacy. You're not allowed to give away medical records. So what the vaccine is it's a way to prove it without giving access to the medical records, which means, and I haven't seen the app in action, so I could be wrong here, but just thinking about it, right? I can give you my QR code.
Yeah.
If they scan it and it says, oh yeah, this person's good, there is no way, like, I can give you a valid QR code.
Yeah.
I can sell you a valid QR code. What are they going to do? Like, how can they prove that you have someone else's QR code? Because to do so, they would need to prove that they would need your medical records to prove you were wrong.
And that's illegal.
Yeah. So does it show like, oh, this is so and so?
I have no idea I think the QR code just goes, it's good.
Yeah. Like it would have to.
No
say,
one ever scanned. They always just stared at it.
It would have to say something like, this person full name. Here's their photo ID.
Yeah.
But you
also give your photo ID along with the password, so you use both of them.
But then you have an app which is, well, I guess it's just another driver's license basically, where it's saying, here's your photo ID and here's this person. So that is a redundancy you could build in.
Yeah.
But at that point, it feels like you're stepping on some toes. I don't know.
It's felt a bit stone-heavy anyways.
But yeah, you were saying in Vancouver you felt quite a bit like a second-class citizen because you had to kind of wheedle your way into every place you went into.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it is I'm a very persuasive person. If the person doesn't know me well, I can basically get them to do at least one thing for me.
And I think, like, not getting people to do stuff for you, but you can get people to believe you.
Well, no, I can also get people to do stuff for me.
But I
like,
think
it's nothing like small things.
But I think the problem with that almost is a judge of character for a person you've just met is nothing.
Yeah.
So you could, like, that is how con artists operate. They act reasonable.
Yes.
They abuse the social construct. Now, if everyone abused the social construct because it's so easy to do, there wouldn't be one. Mm-hmm. So obviously most people are good people.
Yeah.
So their odds were fairly high in your favor.
Yes.
Probably.
I mean, I was being reasonable.
Yeah, but that's what con artists do.
Yes.
And it would.
I wasn't trying to take advantage.
But it's also you felt like a second-class citizen, which is what they want you to do. They want to divide the classes into haves and have-nots, so that they can force you. I want to be a have, so I will do whatever it takes to get there. That is the whole. That is the entire social credit system in China. So
there was a special. I felt pretty like getting onto the plane. I basically I waited, and when I got to the airport, I checked my email. Okay, it's not updated yet. I can't update my information. I sat and waited for an hour outside security just to check if it updated, and then I have to go through security now. So
have I told you about the Chinese MMA fighter Shu?
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, so
you've discussed it on the podcast. Even.
China is actually from the outside they appear very authoritarian, and they are, but for an ordinary citizen living within China, you keep your head down and life is basically normal.
Yeah.
It's only if you go against the Chinese convention that you run into issues. So we were talking about this previously in the episode we lost, where if you're in Australia or China or probably even North Korea to some degree, if you keep your head down and just go through your life, you're probably not going to run into any like major obstacles. Like in North Korea, we said North Korea is probably the exception.
Yeah.
But as long as you just do what the government wants, and you say, "Oh well, it's annoying, but whatever. It's it's for the best of the country," or even it's annoying, but I'll get in trouble if I don't, so I'll do it.
Yeah.
So the thing about China is it's kind of weird, where you're actually permitted to do basically anything. Like they're not super like in Singapore, they make everything illegal. They're like chewing gum in public's illegal, smoking's illegal. Like they just heavy-handed. You'll be arrested. They have a death penalty for basically everything. They have high fines for everything else.
Yeah.
China isn't really like that. It's like, hey, we don't want you to be beating all our martial arts masters, so your social credit's going to go down. Yeah. And you say, but we're not tyrants. We're not tyrants.
Yeah.
It's just look, you're going against the cultural norms, so we're going to let people know quick and easy that you're against the cultural norms.
Yeah.
But what that means is Shu can't take planes. He has to take trains.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a high enough social credit to take a plane. So what it essentially does is it enforces whatever you want without your civilians being able to garner enough support to have a rebellion or a coup, because, well, they don't actually, like, we can, it's like, they won't let us fly on planes. It's like, I can fly on a plane. What do you can't organize a rebellion under that system, because as long as you keep your head down, you can do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. And they don't, it's like, and they don't, you know, it's, for Shu, for example, it's like, we're not allowed to beat up martial arts masters. Well, yeah, you can do that. You know, it's just, there's consequences for your actions. That's it. Yeah. You're free to do what you want. You're just not free from the consequences.
Yeah, you're just doing the martial arts wrong.
And so it allows you to be a soft tyranny, which is more powerful because there's no way to resist you. You can't build an underground movement to push back. And so that is what this whole vaccine passport is. It's a way to create second-class citizens. But as you found, that's the government. Most people are still people.
Yeah.
And I talked about, it reminded me of a study I read about. I didn't read the study itself, but I read a study where in the 60s or something in the States, I don't remember when it was exactly, there's high racism against Chinese people. And so they got this Chinese couple to go around the States to, like, basically cities all around the United States in a grand tour that lasted about a year, and go to restaurants there. And they went to a restaurant and say, hey, can we come in? Can we buy some food? And the restaurant, typically the staff would let them come in, but they might have caveats. They might be like, sorry, there's people here. Could we bring it out to you in your car? Just what do you want? We'll bring it out to you. Or they'd say, okay, we got a secondary room. No one's in there. Can you go in there? Or can you just go into this corner? We'll put a screen around you or something. So they would let them come in most places. And in the places where it was a bit more touchy, it was the staff of the restaurant was willing to serve them, but they didn't want the other customers to notice them because they didn't want to be seen serving Chinese people, or at least giving them normal treatment.
Yeah.
Because people they're like, oh, you serve Chinese people here, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So they were I don't think they were ever denied service. So they did a follow-up where they then phoned around all these restaurants like a year later, and they said, like, once the tour was done.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, so all these restaurants obviously serve this Chinese couple. So then they phoned them and said, hey, can we just, get your menu? And they said, yeah, here it is. And okay, and do you serve Chinese people there? Oh, no, sir, of course not. We don't serve Chinese people here. We're a respectable establishment. So what people appear to be, they want to appear to be the societal,
righteous
legal standard. Not even righteous exactly. Like, it is righteous, I guess, in a way, but it's what you view the collective consciousness to be. So you people want to be seen to be following the collective consciousness. So you will get most people saying, if something is considered to be desirable, like social desirability bias is huge in polls.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it's been leaning left for the last, 5-10 years. So you'll get polls where it'll say, oh yeah, of course, I wouldn't vote for Trump or something. And then Trump wins. And you're like, wait, but we did polls. I don't understand. And it's not necessarily that the polls are bad. It's that in a public poll, you don't want to be seen as voting for the Hitler man. Even though you personally know he's not the Hitler man. But it's, well, all my friends think he's the Hitler man. But it turns out none of your friends think he's the Hitler man either. And all of you voted for him, even though you all said you were going to vote Democrat. So you all got together and you're like, oh yeah, voting for Hillary tomorrow. And then you all go and vote Trump. And then, because there's an idea of groupthink. But the funny thing about groupthink is it's not the common denominator rules the group. It's what the group thinks is the common denominator rules the group. So oftentimes you can actually have stuff happen that's how lynch mobs get formed a lot of the times, is no individual in the mob wants to kill someone, but they all think everyone else does, and they would be in trouble if they didn't go along with it. So that's how you get riots and stuff as well. It's people, and that's why crowds tend to kind of psychically feed off of each other into an extreme, like a polarizing extreme where no one would do that sort of thing normally, but because they're all going with the flow, what they perceive to be the flow, and they don't want to deviate, because if you deviate, well, in a crowd you get crushed. It just grows and grows and grows, and it gets and so it polarizes. You either get more extreme, or you get super, I'm going to defend the store with my life, even though I hate the owners and hate everyone in there. So we talked about that study, I guess, and it's
people though will be kind.
And that was the thing of the difference between dealing with a person and dealing with an entity. So we had the idea of like local businesses where you go to a local business and you say, hey, how's it hey, how's it going? Oh, it's been going good, but we're not not getting money. We're not getting many customers. We got this order of pumpkins in. Nobody wants pumpkins. And then because you're friends with them, you say, well, my the neighborhood kids could do with some activity to this weekend. I'll buy your lot and just have a pumpkin carving.
Yeah.
Right? And so you support them. But then if you go in there and you say, oh, I need new glasses, but I can't afford them. And so, well, I'll give them to you for $180.
Yeah.
Or, $150 instead of $200. And you
Yeah.
say, oh, well, thanks. Because it's a relationship rather than a exchange. And so you treat each other as humans rather than as
numbers.
Yeah, and I guess the idea of you treat them as just a means to an end rather than an end in of themselves. Literally that, where you say, well, you are just the thing I purchased from, rather than you are the community store that I go to and we support. And so, yeah, and there was the power of, like you said, with the security people, what can you do for me?
Yeah.
That's a very powerful tool to use in any situation where someone says, I can't do this for you, you say.
Also, I mean, even if it was one guy's choice, I mean, it's hard to remember every single place I've been to because there's a lot of restaurants in place, but the one place I remember is that restaurant has decent food and the staff they hire seem to be nice and understanding. So if I have the pass forever and I ever go back there, I might go to that restaurant again because it seems like a place with decent people.
And yeah, that's the other thing. You don't want to get a bad review by turning away a customer. So
yeah,
that's another weakness to the whole vaccine passport thing.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't have it, man, but I'm not sick. Okay, fine, come in. Because you need almost like stormtroopers at every door in order to you need to make the public scared enough to police each other. You need the reporting system that they had in Russia where you report on your neighbors, you report on your parents, you report on your kids. There's no community.
The thing in Russia, though, on the reporting, had 3 huge problems with it. I think it was 3.
Well, if you don't like someone, you just report them. That's what the witch hunts had as well. So
that was one of the problems. The second problem is, I won't report you, you won't report me. So there's corruption in there. And then there's the third thing of people getting fed up with it. And in Russia, officials started getting reported for things they never did, because the people in Russia were getting so angry about the reporting. It's like, I want this to stop. That they were reporting the officials who were trying to enforce the thing, and they were reporting police officers on grounds that didn't exist just because the people's like couldn't take any more of it. And that was like one of the starts of the lashback in Russia.
And that's the thing. People will always be people.
Yeah.
Like the USSR was an overarching tyranny with an iron fist. Everyone served the government. Everyone was a part of the government. There's spies everywhere. But it was made up of people. And when the
top to bottom.
Yeah, and when the people decided, hey, we're done, it was over.
Yeah.
It just ended. Because
actually
everyone looked at each other and said, hey, I don't like this, do you? No. And it ended.
Yeah, in my new media class, that was one of the big things the teacher covered is what's something consistent between these 3 pieces of art? So you had a piece of caveman art, and a piece of modern art, and a piece of 15th century art. And we're like trying to come up with ideas like the color, the shape, like it was painted. The thing that was similar between all 3 of them is that they were made by humans. They were made by people. And it's actually a really important lesson in talking about design is it's a human design. Like when you think about making something, when you think about anything, like why would humans want this? Why would they do this?
You know the...
a very interesting one was the maps. So Japanese boat map is a map made out of pottery. And it's like, why the heck would you have a map made out of pottery on a boat? Like pottery seems far more delicate than anything else. It's because Japanese boats are these tiny little things. And sure, pottery can break, but you can sort of piece it back together. And pottery doesn't get wet and like turn to mush. And it's like, it's practical. Like humans are practical.
The Cave of Hands in Peru, I think?
Yeah.
I've seen it many times. Like it's in the opening of Ice Age, I believe.
Yeah.
And you know what it is, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at that sometimes with the right mindset, and you think, wow, it's incredibly powerful and almost creepy in a way, Because what you're looking at is, I think, the oldest piece of artwork known to man.
Yeah.
And each of those handprints is a person putting their hand in paint and sticking it on a wall. And you can flash back for a second there to thousands, or maybe one person who's really determined, of people putting their hands on a wall.
Yeah.
And you can imagine yourself doing that. Just, you find a cave where it never rains, there's no wind, there's no insects, and you think, things will last here forever. And you just make a handprint and you stick it on the cave. And
cave might have the benefit of having a mineral that's easy to make it die.
But you just say, like, hey, this is a thing I can do.
Yeah.
And that is, like, right now, if you found a cave like that, you could do that. And 10,000 years from now, maybe someone will find it.
Well, I mean...
But it's the idea of, those were humans way back then.
Yeah.
They're the same as you and me. And it's so powerful.
Yeah.
To...
Well, in the stories, right? Like, you go sort of into stories and medias, and it's like, there's the medieval village, and there's the poor boy, right?
Yeah.
And he goes and steals the apple, and the guard chases him down and takes the apple from him. And then he's, like, sad, and he's in the alley, and he's hungry. And then, like, a stranger will come along and give him the apple. I think a really powerful one is the guard comes over and gives him the apple after catching him. The guard's bought it and then gives it to him. But his sort of idea is, like, yeah, you did something wrong there, kid, so I have to, like, catch you and take the apple and give it back. But then the kid gets food anyways, because people are like, this kid's hungry.
Well,
you need some food.
We talked about that with Egypt, where, well, Gaddafi has a massive army of soldiers that will defend him from any revolution.
Yeah.
And the soldiers join the rebellion. They're like, no, we're not going to shoot our own people. These are our friends and our family. Yeah. We're going to take you down.
Yeah.
And so they did.
Mm-hmm.
And so people are people. Even the Nazi SS stormtroopers and whoever else, they're people too. I mean, Operation Valkyrie was most of Hitler's high command working together to end Nazi Germany. Yeah. It failed. Although I didn't really have to, I think.
Or there's even that, there's that German general who did stuff on the Northern Front because he's just like, no, I'm a general. I'm not a Nazi party member. I'm just a German general.
Just serving his country.
I'm just going to be a general. And so he was very human in the fact that, yeah, we're at war, but I'm going to do it on this level instead of that level.
It's kind of...
Or like the runaway slave, and the person hides it at great risk to themselves with no benefit because they're just going to do it.
Yeah. And the thing is, those guards, right, the evil guards hunting on the slave, at the end of the day, they don't have to be evil either.
Yeah.
They could... A lot of people just doing their job, which,
you
know, you can perpetuate a lot of evil doing that. But you can't really blame someone for wanting to keep their head down and just go through the day. And, you know, if this slave hadn't broken the law, they wouldn't be a slave, or they wouldn't be in the situation where they were in trouble. I'm not changing anything, so I'm not in trouble. I just want to get through my life. And you can appreciate, if not necessarily respect, just people wanting to keep their head down and go about their day.
Yeah.
Like, Audacity is now... they can now send telemetry data for the purposes of law enforcement to any country that requests it. And a lot of people are saying...
Yeah, this is the other side to the humans are humans, what you're about to go to.
I don't think so. Because... I don't like that. I don't think you like that. I'm not sure as much. I don't think you care as much.
I don't care as much. That's what I was talking about. Some people are just like, whatever, I'm going to live my life.
And same with Age of Wonders, where they send off all your data. Like any Paradox game, they send off a huge amount of your data.
Yeah.
I don't like that. A lot of people don't like that. But a lot of people don't care. They're like, well, whatever. They can do it. I don't have anything to hide. They can do whatever they want with my data. I don't care.
Yeah.
Now, I think, to a degree, you haven't thought it through. Because the stuff you can do with data is far more powerful than you realize. For a very small example... If you see that, for example, someone plays their Paradox game, you buy the data from Paradox, and it's like, I play the game every day from 6 to 10.
Yeah.
That means that you can guess with a little bit more data. You can triangulate and figure out, okay, so this person, here's the time period where their computer is on, but they are not at it.
Yeah.
That is the time to run malicious software on their computer without them noticing. Or, alternatively, that is when they are not home, and that's the time I can break into their house. You can extrapolate so much from so little.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at someone's electrical record, you say, well, the temperature goes down here, and the lights are off, and they have, like, no bill. So if I want to break into their house, this is when I do it. If I'm the government, and I want to stick bugs in their house, I do it when they're not home, so I'll do it between this time and this time.
Well, the same teacher had some other ideas that were kind of kooky. But one of the things he talked about, which was this interesting idea, is basically tracking a house by what appliances they turn on to know where a person is in the house. So this light is on, so they just enter this room. This appliance is turned on, so it's like looking at the power use and actually be able to map someone's movement inside their own home.
And if you can establish patterns, you can do very powerful things.
Yeah.
And so there is that side to it. But for the most part, people are like, look, I don't care. Because the thing is, no government's going to spy on you. No government's going to break in and arrest you. Because I'm obeying the law. I'm not doing anything. And so most people don't care. And you can't really blame someone for I just want to have fun. I just want to use Audacity. It works. It's simple. I just want to play this game.
Yeah.
The chain tightens a little bit each time. And you talked about this with the income tax, where it was a temporary measure to help with the war effort.
Yeah.
And it's still around today.
And it's increased, actually, from the wartime.
And the chain just keeps tightening and tightening and tightening. And then I gave the counterexample of it keeps tightening. But there can come a point where people say enough is enough. And so World War II, Winston Churchill was the leader of UK. And
Great Britain, actually.
He gave... Yeah, well, no, the UK. Great Britain would be the island, but he owned Ireland as well.
Oh, yeah.
So he would have been... Well, technically the entire Commonwealth, I guess. But anyways, he... gave the police incredible powers. So they were really afraid of the Blitz. So when bombers were flying, so at nighttime you weren't allowed to have any lights showing from your house. Yeah. And if there was even a sliver of light through your window, police officers could barge into your house and ream you out and forcibly close your windows and say you can't do that. So the police were able to barge into people's homes and force them to do things, which is an incredible amount of power they do not have currently. And the reason they still don't have that power to some degree is the moment the war was over, Winston Churchill was booted out like instantly. Yeah. The people are like, we're done with you being a tyrant. Yeah. We needed it, but now we're done. You're out. Whoever is against your policies, we're voting in. Just get out of here. Yeah. So sometimes there is a line and the common man will stand up and they'll push back. But that does... I think the realization of what powers you're giving away might be too slow sometimes. Because if you just treat people as ordinary people, you say, hey, there's a pandemic. Can you not come to work if possible? We'll give you a helpline if your boss is forcing you to come to work. Yeah. We'll maybe give a grant to your business to help you set up an office at home. Yeah. We'd like you to wear masks in public. Try to see your friends half as often. And once we get a vaccine, if you get it, that'd be great. It could save lives. Yeah. If they did that without enforcing anything, I think they have basically the same effect right now without losing a huge amount of trust. Yeah. Because they have
just asking, not creating these powers. And
they create all these restrictions that they didn't enforce. Yeah. So they didn't get any benefit from it. And instead they just tanked the economy and didn't really slow the spread beyond the goodwill of people anyways.
Yeah. And they also damage the goodwill. So there's a nature to people which is you can't tell me what to do.
Yeah. So they...
Like you can ask someone to do something and they're far more likely to do it than you telling them to do it.
And the spirit of the law can allow you to be safe and continue the economy. Whereas the letter of the law stopped a lot of legitimate businesses operating totally safely. Yeah. Because, well, you had to. It was the law. So they basically gave you the worst of all worlds. Yeah. Whereas if they had just treated people as people, if Orpheus had not looked back at his wife and trusted her to come out of the underworld, we could be in a much better place. Like you look at in the UK where Boris Johnson was... They released images now of him having a party just after he mandated absolute lockdowns, all restrictions, no parties, no whatever. You look at the picture. There's 6 guys in a very large room playing a little quiz game on their laptops. So they're not holding hands. They're not near each other. Yeah. They're not partying and dancing really close. And they're all they all work together. They're all politicians that see each other every day, probably without masks, just due to circumstance. Yeah. What they're doing is actually very safe and totally responsible and reasonable. Yeah. They're not having a great big gala. But the thing is, they're following the spirit of the law perfectly. But he is enforcing the letter of the law on his citizens. Yeah. He is saying, you cannot be You are not an intelligent human being that can rationalize and come up with safe parties on your own. Only I can do that because I am better than you, essentially. And what that does is that makes people say anything you say is garbage. I will not trust a single word you say because you won't even follow your own laws. Now, if he had said, look, Omicron is coming. It's going to be a problem. Keep all your parties with people you know well. Keep the numbers small. Keep it safe. Then people would still trust him. The leaks come out. It's like he had this Christmas party, and you'd go, yeah, but he's following his own guidelines. He only has a couple friends over. They work together every day, and they're not even near each other. They're around a giant table with laptops. Just a little LAN party, basically. Yeah. And you're like, whatever, that's fine. The Prime Minister can do what he wants. If he had given that same thing to the other citizens, because but the Prime Minister needs to be harsh on them to keep them locked down. Yeah. Do you think there's not secret parties happening because he said... Yeah. Do you know what happened during the... in the States when they banned alcohol? Alcohol consumption skyrocketed. Yeah. It went up. Speakeasies were everywhere. People were drinking like crazy. You do not... where is it? Leo, the comedian on Lotus Eaters, talked about this. It's a Middle Eastern country. They banned comedy.
And so there's underground comedy clubs everywhere.
But they're a massive... underground comedy is huge there. Yeah. You can't stop people from doing what they want. You can just stop them from telling you about it. Yeah. So it could be a lot better if you're shame any... I mean, that's the thing China does best, really. We're not going to ban anything because we want to know when you're breaking our laws. Yeah. We'll let you do it, and then we'll shame you for it. And because if you get everyone to hate one person for doing something, that means the person can do it without fear of legal repercussion. Yeah. But it also means they're doing it. They're not doing it secretly. And you actually have all the citizens hating dissidents. Because that's the thing I don't get about telemetry. There's the people that say, okay, I'm not going to touch Audacity anymore. I'm done. And then there's the people that say, whatever, I don't care. They can read my data. But there's this very weird group, and I don't know why they exist, but they exist everywhere. They exist for video game companies. They exist for stuff like Audacity. They exist for giant corporations like Amazon who defend them. There is no reason to defend them. They aren't going to give you a pat on the head, and they are not doing anything for you. There is no... Your product is running slower. You're using more data because of telemetry. There is no benefit from it. You can argue the benefit is they can better update their program because they're getting feedback from the user.
With telemetry, they're going to catch criminals, and you're not a criminal. You only want that if you're a criminal.
Yes, because what is illegal is not necessarily what is wrong or right. Yeah. In Canada, there is now a quasi-legal area, for example, of questioning the idea of identity in general. Yeah. So I am bug gender. If you laugh at that, that could be considered, I don't think the law passed, but that could have been considered illegal. And that was something that was pushed. And we have pushed a lot of things closer and closer to it. People were banned from the internet for using Twitter.
In Scotland, speaking in the privacy of your own home is illegal.
Yeah. Jokes are illegal in Scotland. Yeah. In Wales, they have segregation now for some racial segregation in the name of diversity, which is insane.
It's also insane that's in Wales because 99% of Wales is Welsh.
Maybe that's why it works, because nothing actually changes.
It's I think it's 99.8% of Wales is Welsh.
There's just the Nigerian-born Bob Dunfield over there, and he's just not allowed to sit with his friends anymore.
That's the population of Wales and the distribution.
The entire law was passed so they could fire one black guy. They were just man, we really hate him, but we don't know how to fire him. What if we say we're making an entire racial group. No, we're not making an entire racial group. We're making an entire melatonin level. That's insane, actually. Black and white are not cultures, except there is a place where that isn't true. In the United States, and maybe South Africa, that is true. Black and white are cultures. Although in South Africa, there's 5 native African groups, majority African groups there. And then there's the Dutch and English. So that's still 7 main groups. Mm-hmm. And in the United States, I mean, you have Dutch and Italian and English and German.
French.
And a little bit of French, Japanese, Chinese. So even then, and then the First Nations,
Mexican.
massive amount of First Nations, Spanish, Aztecs,
Yeah.
Mexicans, depending on how you look at it. So there's all that. And then the black people, I think at this point, that's in quotation marks, maybe because of the unique circumstances they were in, that did become a culture. I think I would agree with that. Even though they're from all over Africa, I think that probably is a culture, just because, like not people that moved to the United States in the last 50 years or 70 years, but people whose ancestors are from 400 years ago or 300 years ago. I could see that becoming a unified culture just because you are forced together in such unusual circumstances. It creates a bond of sorts. But so the whole idea of, like in Wales, saying, oh, the black and the whites, that's American imperialism.
Yeah.
Cultural imperialism. They are forcing their own weird culture of dividing by such an arbitrary characteristic as color.
Yeah.
Like, it would make more sense to differentiate by height. Like, it would come to the same thing a lot of the time. But
Especially in Wales.
But you have, like, you know, you have, like, Swedish people, very tall. Kenyans, very tall. They should be in the same group. And then you have, like, the
Welsh.
Well, you have, like, the Chinese and the Polynesian, I guess most Polynesians, and the Mayans in one group. That would make way more sense, because it's a noticeable physical difference, whereas skin color is as arbitrary as eyes or hair. Or like if you look at Africa alone, well, Africa I think has the most diversity in the world. Most people in Africa have black skin, but they have by far the most genetic diversity in the world. Yeah. You look at two different tribes, and like there's some of the, I think Africa is one of the few places on Earth where people actually look different. Yeah. Like a Chinese person looks basically the same as an English person. But in Africa, they have like pygmies. They have people that, like, the tallest people are 4 feet tall. Yeah. And they have people with giant like noses or ears or like tubular heads or giant lips or pot bellies, or like there is so much human, and it's not even that much compared to most animals, but for humans, it's massive. And there's people with like reddish skin. Mm-hmm. You don't really see that anywhere else in the world. And yet, well, they're black. That is so reductive. And that's like, even if you wanted to be genetically divisive, that is reductive. Yeah. Like a phrenologist who measures the lumps in your head to determine your IQ and whatnot is more discerning, because he'd be like, well, these people are totally different. Like, you can't just say they're all the same. Like, look, this guy's head is totally different from this guy's head. Yeah. And it's ridiculous. Okay, so with the like the people saying this is too far and they'll push back. Yeah. In the States, I don't think it's, and probably the rest of the world, I don't think it happens soon enough, because last year the CDC released, and we talked about this last time, a study where they asked people in June how they were doing, basically. Yeah. And they found that 11% of Americans had seriously considered suicide over the month of June. Yeah. From people ages 18 to 25, 25% had seriously considered suicide in the month of June. Yeah. Which means that, I think it's quite obvious to say, no matter how many lives the lockdowns, the passports might have saved, you're destroying the minds of a quarter of your young people and 10% of your country. Yeah. Well, and that is the line in the sand. That is the step too far. That is so obviously there. And instead the politicians said, we're going to double down for another year. And so they did it. And you say, okay, that's a crazy call. Like that I'm not saying it's necessarily wrong even. Yeah. Because these people considered suicide, but they obviously didn't kill themselves. So you say, I'm going to break these people's minds, but I'm going to save their lives. Yeah. That is the trade I'm willing to make. So a year goes by, you get the vaccine. You get everyone who wants the vaccine to have the vaccine. 70% or so. Yeah. And then you still keep
breaking minds.
Well, you still keep the lockdowns. Yeah. You still keep the restrictions. And at that point, why? Because it's a habit. You're used to it.
Well, that's part of it, I think, is that it's not over yet now, is it? And there's new variants. And Immunities might not work, and we rushed so desperately for these vaccines, we still don't know if they'll actually work.
Well, they've been very effective.
Yeah.
We don't know how, like, they've stopped being effective a lot faster than we thought they would.
Yeah.
But they have been shown to be very effective. The people with serious illness or death from the virus compared to the people without serious illness is massive. You are way less likely to die if you've had the vaccine. You are way less likely to get severely ill if you've had the vaccine.
Now, what's a bit weird is, so the Black Death, which is kind of, comparing the two is kind of weird. Because in the UK, Black Death killed something like 60%. It's like 50 to 60.
It killed like a third of Europe, so...
Yeah, but the UK was particularly bad. It was like 60 to 50% of everyone died from the Black Death. So population getting cut in half by disease. We're not having that.
No, not even close. I think... I saw the numbers, I don't remember. I think deaths have remained basically the same.
Yeah.
I think it was.
But...
Like, they've gone up a bit from... Well, Corona's done more, but flu obviously is doing less. Car crashes are way down.
Yeah.
I think, like, overdoses and heart attacks might actually be up. But,
oh, yes.
But, yeah, I think car crashes were way down for a while, at least.
Yeah, but
And I know someone who knows a mortician who was saying they're getting way less people in, but that's anecdotal, so...
The absolute... they didn't really have lockdowns per se in the UK. They had, you don't travel to someone else's village, and then the flagellants just ruined everything. Yeah. And I was actually reading that some towns are starting to figure out that the flagellants are causing problems, and in certain places, because England's full of yeomen, basically if you saw people walking towards your village, they just got shot because you didn't want anyone coming nearby. Yeah, and so it's like trying to lock down your small community.
And it was bad.
Yeah. And I was thinking about with the parties, like, I know you're calling them Meyer parties, but the Yellow Mask story, the
Mask of Red Death?
Yeah, the Mask of Red Death kind of comes from the idea of the Black Death, and then all the politicians are having parties, and then they all die from it.
Yeah.
I was sort of thinking about the Mask of Red Death. Although, if you actually read the Mask of the Red Death, that is a trippy story.
It's very weird. But yeah, it reminds me of like Obama's birthday party.
Yeah.
Or the Met Gala.
Yeah.
Where although in the case of the Mask of Red Death, everyone in the town had died and they were just hiding.
Yeah.
And then they didn't escape anyways.
Yeah.
Whereas in this case, it's more of a Sodom and Gomorrah type thing where they disobey God and they just have parties regardless of the safety or health of anyone else. And
still
it's the elites have so little regard for the...
What I was going to get to with the Black Death and killing 50% of people is 25% of people, well, young people, have had basically their minds ruined.
Yeah.
And maybe in the face of 50%, the potential 50% of everyone dying,
right,
that might be an acceptable trade.
Right, but we're looking at more like 10% on the high end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that would probably be mostly old people.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting question. Here is a very weird ethical question. So the coronavirus appears basically if you're unhealthy or old, you're at risk. Most other people aren't at very high risk at all.
Yeah.
So the death rates mostly come from older people and people with health problems.
Yeah, comorbidities.
Yeah. So you're overweight, you have HIV, you
have a lung problem,
you have an immune disorder.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. I mean, we both kind of have immune disorders, so
mine helps me with everything.
So we could be in that group.
Yeah.
But the weird ethical question is, let's say we didn't have any lockdowns at all.
Yeah. And
so the economy didn't crash. And a bunch of old people died.
Yeah.
Is that the duty of old people anyways? Not to die, but to not... Because these economic problems now are going to last for probably decades.
Yeah.
So we have condemned the lives of people who are going to be around for a long time to poverty, risk from that poverty, like possible death, starvation, whatever else it might be. And we've ruined the impact of their life. We've caused many to feel suicidal.
We don't even know what this will do to children.
Yeah.
Like people below the age of 15
are
probably going to have some psychological trauma.
Maybe. It might make them stronger.
Yeah.
We don't know. It could be quite beneficial to them in the end to have that resilience. Because resilience is a very real thing.
Yeah.
But so there is a lot of negative effects that we will have. We know that. But imagine instead we didn't have those and we had a whole bunch of old people die. But if you look at most cultures around the world, use the Inuit, for example. When people got old enough that they couldn't hunt and winter was looking rough, they're like, okay, this is going to be a rough winter. A lot of the old people would decide,
To walk out.
I'm going to go for a walk.
Yeah.
They just say, all right, I'm going for a walk, or I'm going hunting, or whatever it might be. And they would just walk out and die. Like, they'd probably try to succeed some way, but the idea was, if you die now,
Yeah.
or if you or everyone dies when you starve, or some miracle happen, or no, either you die 2 years early, or everyone dies, and it becomes a pretty obvious choice at that point because it's everyone has to die at some point, so you might as well do something worthy.
Yeah. Well, so the problem is what has happened to our old people, because
So
we used to. The family used to look after their old people. It was your responsibility to look after your parents, or the villages to look after the elders. You take care of the old people. But we changed that to the state looks after old people. And so you sort of shift them on. So with the state looking after the old people, the state's job is to do everything in its power to protect everyone it's responsible for. So the state has to protect its old people. So we gave the state the responsibility of protection. So we basically said, take care of our elders, and the state is going to take care of our elders.
but the state also can draft soldiers.
Yeah.
So you're not executing old people. You're saying, I want you on the front lines.
I think
You're drafting the elders. That's very different from murdering them. The government cannot... How does that go? The government cannot order you to die, but it can order you to fight.
Yeah.
And so the old people make better soldiers anyways, really, because they're the people that have the least to lose in some ways. So you can say, we order you to fight. You will be the warriors who will fight this pandemic, rather than have all the young people fight. We are asking toddlers to fight this pandemic instead of old people. That seems backwards, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I don't know. It just seems weird.
Well, it is a very hard ethical question, I think. But okay, so
I think there's two problems, which is basically, and we've talked about this before. So asking old people to fight is saying, we're not locking down this disease. It's going to go through everyone. It's going to be bad, but we're going to live as normal, and we're going to do the best we can with it.
yeah. Well, I wouldn't even say you have to say live as normal. Just
Well, we're going
be cautious, but don't destroy your life.
Yeah, so we're going to do the best we can with it. So that's option one.
Yeah.
So that's one approach. And I remember a statistic right near the start of this was actually like looking at statistics of it. And he's saying, so this amount of your total population dies from doing this. This is the impact on your economy. So he did basically looked at that.
Yeah.
And then he said, all right, total lockdown for this amount of time. And he meant absolute total lockdown, which he says, and these numbers have to exist, like the disease has to be spreading at this point. Once it starts spreading at this point, you basically leave it for another few days and then it'll be gone. And he says, so that lockdown, this is the impact on your economy. And so that's the total lockdown. And we went in the middle, which is worse than both.
Yeah. But I think the problem with those statistics is they assume, first of all, productive people, everyone's productive, and they're all dying equally. Whereas in reality, the most productive people probably aren't going to die because they are healthier and less old.
Yeah.
If you're a fat, lazy slob, you're not going to be doing much anyways. So there's that aspect of the economy. There's also a lockdown is not just an economic impact for the moment of the lockdown. There is the fact that, well, where we live, for example, we've had more overdose deaths than COVID deaths.
Yeah.
So you're not even necessarily saving lives.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do all the fun math you want, but the reality is there's often a lot more going on behind the scenes. And a lot of your assumptions so you can say, we will have 10% of our non-productive population die, or we will have uh, we will have 1% of the general population die, and the economy will be damaged by 50%, which means that over the course of the next 200 years, an additional 10% of all people will die.
I think there's the idea that once you're old enough, you deserve to live the rest of your days in peace without trouble.
I think that as an elder, you should be trying to protect and guide the youth.
Yeah, I think there's also that too.
You haven't earned anything if you've done nothing to... By being old is no virtue in of itself. You have to show wisdom. And wisdom would be guiding your young people. And to guide your young people, you have to be able to do the things they cannot to save them.
Yeah.
You can't... Like, you say that, parents aren't looked after, but that's the state's job. And I think a lot of that's probably because the parents aren't worthy of being looked after. People won't just abandon their parents due to selfishness.
Yeah.
If people want to do something, they will do it.
Yeah.
And if you have a parent who just gives up and is... Well, I don't want to call him out by name, but is a sort of distant family member of ours who is a pretty awful person.
Yeah.
And no one will have anything to do with him. And the thing is, people, like his siblings, are older than him and more competent.
Yeah.
Like they don't need help, they don't need nurses, but he does because he doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So should his children be forced to look after him when the children of the people that are actually taking upon the burdens and successes of life themselves don't need it, just because... But the thing, like if you look at Japanese old people, for example,
yeah,
they typically don't need to be looked after. They look after their old people, in a sense. They don't kick them out of the house, but they don't need to be looked after because they keep... Like in Japan, most people work until they die.
Yeah.
They are able to keep functioning until the moment they die, or within a few months or years, like 2 years, let's say, or a few.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you turn like 75, 80, and, well, now you move in with your kids and you diminish their lives for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
So I don't think by being old you get any rights whatsoever. I think by being a virtuous person, you become respected and you are treated with respect. But part of that respect is you are willing... Like, you don't respect Aragon because he hides behind the castle walls. You respect him because he runs out onto the battlefield and fights for his people.
Yeah.
And so if the old people aren't running onto the battlefield to fight for their people, then there's no point in revering them in the first place.
Yeah.
So if all the old people say, no, keep it going, we're willing to take the risk so that you can live the fulfilling lives we got to live because our elders did this for us.
Yeah.
Our elders fought in World War II for us, so we will fight in this war for you. We will give you the same chance. Then you say, I revere you, and those of you who die, I salute, and those of you who live, I revere all the more.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's the same idea, I think, of what you're saying with how people say that, oh, old people always vote conservative because they're going to die soon anyway, so they don't care about what happens to the country. But no, they are looking out for the interest of all those younger than them.
Yeah.
They want the best for their loved ones.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, hopefully most of them.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I was watching this cartoon, and it's Japanese, so it's collectivist society. And a kid in a classroom, whenever they need to volunteer, they take on the job.
Yeah.
And so if I was writing this Aesop's tale,
yeah,
I'd say, kid, you need to stand up for yourself. The Japanese lesson was the class needs to stop taking advantage of the kid.
Mm.
It's very similar, but it's a huge difference in some ways, because it means in Japanese society, the entire community needs to work together or it fails.
Yeah.
Whereas in an individualist society like Canada, you need to help out yourself in order for everyone else to succeed.
Yeah.
So it puts a lot more responsibility on stuff you can't control. I think it would form a more tight-knit community if it worked, potentially. But you put the burden of your own foibles on everyone else rather than taking up the mantle yourself and being a better person.
Yeah.
I'm not...
Well, that's also a weird Japanese story, because that's a huge...
I don't think so, because they're collectivist.
But a huge part of shonen stories is taking on the power for yourself and accepting your own responsibility and your ability and doing the thing that a man would do and doing it for yourself.
Yeah, but that's what... See, the classmates were in trouble for not doing that.
Mm.
So you classmates are not living up to your potential.
Yeah.
That was the problem, rather than you are not denying, you are not standing up for yourself and forcing others to pick up the slack.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things where it works if you understand it, but it's actually quite difficult to understand potentially. Like, I'm not sure. I think in the West, when we try to follow collectivist values, we actually just end up using selfish values. We say everyone should do stuff for me rather than... So in Japan,
yeah,
I think what you would... And in China, what you would end up with is, I will serve my community as best I can.
Yeah. Well, like that one kid is doing.
But the kid is messing up because they are actually denying those around them the opportunity to achieve. So it's kind of two different ways to get the same results almost. Mm-hmm. But I think the one that makes more sense to my brain, at least, is... Because if you tell the kid, stand up for yourself, you get the result of the entire community has to come together and be stronger and share the load anyways.
Share the load.
So it's kind of reminded me of the Sephiroth. When I was learning about them, they didn't really make sense. It's just a bunch of rings. Like 40 rings, and they're the emanations of God. And it didn't quite make sense to me. But I was thinking about the geocentric model of the Earth, and how I could explain it to someone that didn't understand how...
Geocentric means Earth-center?
Yeah. So Earth's in the center, and then you've got, like...
The sun, the moon.
Well, you got, like, the moon, and then Venus, then Mars, and the sun, and Jupiter, and sort of like that. But I was trying to come up with a way to explain how it made sense. Because to someone that... Most people, I think, would say geocentric solar system is stupid.
Yeah.
And it's very selfish. Like, oh, the Catholic Church, they just want Earth to be the center of everything. That is the exact opposite message of the geocentric Earth. Because what you get, the outermost layer, right, of the Sephiroth, is the highest order of divinity. The closer you go to the center, the closer you go to Satan's domain. The closer you go to the Earth, the realm of the demiurgus, the place where the divine has become embedded within material things. So a geocentric...
So being the center of the universe is being closest to hell.
Yeah, you are in the material world. And the material world is the world of desires and passions and wants and pain and fear and ignorance. So what the model says is that the ruler of the Earth is the solar system, and the ruler of the solar system is the stars, and the ruler of the stars is the angels, essentially.
Yeah. So
the divine have control over the lesser thing, and you came from the divine so that you may come back out. Like, it's sort of one way to look at Satan, which is interesting. The Rosicrucians used, apparently, is potentially, because they're like a very mysterious organization, so not much is known, but you look at the throne of God shining a beam down onto Satan, and you can think of Satan as like a disco ball.
He diffracts the light.
He diffracts the light into the
myriads,
the universe. So
shades of divinity.
Yeah, so like you get the perfection.
Yeah.
But then in order for it to multiply and differentiate, it needs to strike the center, and then the center sends it back outwards.
Yeah.
And so what the Rosicrucians do a lot is they have these models where they say the abyss, the underworld, the hell, basically, right?
Yeah.
Is the realm of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And the realm of the spiritual and light and heaven is the realm of the tree of life. But if you want to get knowledge from both trees, you have to descend into the abyss to get knowledge from the tree of good and evil. And so that's the light they shine upon Satan. So Satan is the soil. You could, well, not Satan, Lucifer. So you could look at Lucifer as the soil in which you plant a seed, and the seed is the divine thought.
Yeah.
And the tree grows back up into heaven, so it becomes greater than it once was, which is very similar to Jordan Peterson's Go into Chaos to bring new order.
Yeah, well,
which I think is kind of funny, because he spent many years of his life trying to come up with an idea based on Jung. But he didn't come up with anything new. He came up with an idea that is so old, it's older than the Bible.
Yeah.
But
it's expressed in a way that we'll understand now.
Or it's expressed in a different way.
The one thing just I want to note on the geocentric is I find, like, especially from some parts of high school and school, and most people's thoughts in general in the past, is there's a supreme kind of arrogance that because we're farther in the future and we think differently than people thought then, that they were idiots and we're smarter than them. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not saying like, oh, we must have tribal knowledge and the knowledge of the ancients because, well, they kept slaves and that's not great for our modern sensibilities.
maybe.
Yeah, maybe, but like we don't know everything about back then.
Yeah.
For one,
But also we misunderstand. Like, the knowledge is there, right? Like, there is people that don't misunderstand the past, but the lens people look at the past through is so distorted that they think they were stupid, whereas the amount we know now, as an entire species, is maybe slightly larger than what we knew then, but as an individual, it's the same.
Well, one of the big things is hygiene. So there's thought of the Dark Ages, which is the dirty Dark Ages. And for one, cleanliness was actually really important to them.
But everyone took baths until the bubonic plague.
Yeah, everyone took baths bubonic plague. But even then, you go in the field, and someone's not going to have their hands covered in cow patties and eat. That's disgusting. Like, that disgust comes from human instinct. It's not modern sensibilities. And so you would wash your hand with ash and lye soap.
Yeah, but not washing was smart, because if you go to the public bath where everyone has the plague, you die.
Yeah, and the whole thing about, like, they knew that their, like, cleanliness wasn't developed to a certain point, so you didn't eat with your left hand, because that's the hand you wiped your butt with.
Yeah.
And so you won't eat with that hand. And there's, like, they ate on pieces of bread instead of plates. They did that so they could give food to the poor. Like, it was actually a charity thing. That was one concept.
Well, I wouldn't consider eating on bread instead of plates to be lesser in any way.
Well, I'm just, like, there's certain, like, it's an oddity. Or,
well, we misunderstand a lot of stuff,
Egypt, there's this thought that there's a massive amount of sexism in Egypt. But there's two problems with that. One is everyone in Egypt looked really similar. And it's because everyone was bald in Egypt. You didn't have hair. You would wear a wig that was hair. And you were bald. And your wig a lot of times signified your job.
Beards were official uniform as well.
Yeah, beards were fake as well. You'd have a beard attached. Everyone's clean shaven because it's holy to be clean shaven. And so there's a very famous case of a pharaoh who was a woman, and she had the beard attached to her face because she's the pharaoh. That's what pharaohs wear. And so the paintings of her look like pharaohs. And so we look at hieroglyphs and we go, okay, so all the officials of this sort of organization are male. However, grave evidence suggests by, like, bone work and looking at DNA that some of them were female.
Well, here's something even...
And so we can basically go and look at this as like, oh, their artwork is, this is how you draw an official of the taxes. And they're just drawn like this man.
I think the idea of historical sexism is in of itself kind of a silly idea. Let's say all the officials were only male.
Yeah.
How is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean the women are useless. Or let's say it does mean the women are useless. So in Rome, where nobody did anything but the slaves, does that mean the slaves were the most important figures in society that had all the benefits?
Yeah.
That's not how we generally think of things. So if all the people who are working are men, that doesn't mean that society is the rule of the men. That sounds like the opposite, actually. That sounds like the rule of the women, because they don't have to do the work. But I don't think that's what happened either. I think everyone was doing their part. Yeah. And if the parts happen to be different, then let the people do the job they're best at.
Yeah, well, there's also that lens of that they did back then, and
look at Sweden today.
Yeah, it worked to
it has the highest sexism in the world.
But also, it worked to a certain extent for thousands of years, and just because it doesn't match our sensibility now, doesn't mean it didn't work for them, and it doesn't mean that their lives weren't fulfilling. Because there's this
a strong, independent woman is a man. That's the modern lesson.
Well, there's also life satisfaction to the statistics.
Oh yeah, for women went down.
Well, it went down, but so there's this thought that even in the 20s, well, 30s, 40s, whatever, it's like, oh, you're a housewife and you have your kids and stuff. And back then, that was thought as pretty respectable. And Now it's like, oh, you're a woman, you have to have a job as well. And I think it might be a great deception by corporation or something to try to get more people working. I don't know. It goes different theory, different line of thought.
Elizabeth Warren, like the senator in the United States, like the Native American one, who claims she's Native American, wrote an economics book about this called The Two Income Trap, which I have on my Kindle. I haven't read it yet, but her idea is basically, it was a trick. The whole, like, it was like, we just halved your income.
Yeah, but besides that thought there, so being an independent woman and breaking the mold so both parents go to work and kids are raised, however, you don't have the housewife or you don't have the house husband, which is actually a very interesting concept. But you don't have the person looking at a house, you don't have this divide. But people who actually do have that, like Sweden, and people in the States, like it's called the trad wife.
Yeah.
And there's jokes about the trad wives, first whatever. But when you actually like just ask those people, like, how happy are you? They're generally really happy.
Now, the one thing I'll say to that is I imagine that, like, people... This is kind of a key point of the Inquisitor arguing against Jesus in the Brothers Karamazov.
Yeah.
People are happiest when they're slaves.
Yes.
So, because choice is bad. Choice is scary, and every problem is yours and you mess up. People like to be, full, secure, happy. Now, I'm not saying that traditional wives are slaves.
Yeah.
That what I assume is going on in there is they are finding fulfillment in doing what they enjoy.
Yeah.
And what the society is saying for women is to be men rather than to be... like, if you look at... Oh, there's strong female heroes in fiction. Like, look at Ripley and look at Sarah O'Connor. Well, Sarah O'Connor, actually more so, I think, is actually a feminine hero to a degree. Yeah. I don't think Ripley really is. I think she's a masculine hero.
Yeah.
Like, I think a feminine hero is someone who is feminine. Like I don't mean in appearance or I mean their virtues ground up are focused in feminine virtue. The virtue of helping up. I think at its core, I could be wrong here. I think at its core, the core of masculinity is protecting people by controlling what they do.
Yeah.
So you say to your kid, don't touch that fire. I think the core of femininity and feminine virtue is helping others. Yeah. So you're saying, let me do that for you. Mm-hmm. Now, we've talked about this before. You can be a tyrant and you can be a all-consuming mother.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't do those. But, so I think a female hero... Well, Katniss, actually. she goes instead of her sister. Yeah. She says, I will do this instead of you. So a masculine hero might have fought back against the Capitol, but Katniss just said, "I will take the place of my sister." So I think she, to a degree, could be considered for that instance of the story. So
there's a Japanese anime called the Way of the House Husband, and I actually recommend it. It's very funny.
You've talked about it before a little.
No, I haven't talked about the Way of the House Husband. So the Way of the House Husband is basically there's a incredibly powerful, very dangerous Yakuza man who suddenly disappears from like the face of the criminal world. And it's because he married a woman and became her husband. And she's a businesswoman, and so he supports her in that. And so he's the house husband, he looks after the house. And she goes and does the work. And it's basically... where the comedy comes from is you have a very masculine trope of a hard-boiled Yakuza member trying to approach how to take care of a household from a male's very masculine perspective, but trying to do a feminine job.
I wouldn't call it a feminine job.
Trying to just a masculine approach to taking care of a house. And so he's very practical and he's very harsh in the way he does things, and he's very controlled.
I wouldn't say any job. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, maybe there's... I'm not certain on this, but I don't think for the most part jobs are masculine or feminine. Now, I would call it would be a matter of interpretation. Yeah. For instance, I think a politician would typically be a man because that's the position of control. However, I think there would be room for a feminine type of politician, but it wouldn't look the same as a masculine politician.
Yeah, well, he looks quite different than your traditional housewife. He's a house husband, and it's kind of explores the idea of what a house husband is in Japan, and it's just very interesting. It's quite funny as well. They add comedy too, but he's very virtuous and very respectable in what he's doing. Like, he's actually a responsible person who does stuff. Like, he has a noble life.
I'm just having troubles thinking of what a house tender does that would be masculine or feminine. Because it's just a protection versus sustenance, maybe. It seems like a weird position to gender in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, if you're looking after a kid, that's one thing. But I don't know. I'm having troubles. Like, what does he do that's masculine and household?
Well, we'll watch it after the fact.
Well, why don't you give me an example?
Well, so there's a problem in the house. So the screen door is damaged, like the paper door is damaged because there's a hole in it. The cat punched a hole in it. So he takes apart the entire door, replaces every single facet of it, replaces the paper and puts it back in place.
Right.
And then it's done. So he fixed the whole thing.
So would a feminine response be more logistical, where you find the right person and get the best deal?
Yeah,
okay.
To get them to fix it.
So a man would be the direct approach, whereas a woman would be the best approach. Like, best approach as in find what you find.
I mean, even a feminine approach to this is to get your husband to fix it. Because he's the best person for the job.
Yeah, I think the feminine approach would be to find the best person for the job.
Whereas the masculine approach is he takes it upon himself and does it.
And this actually is related to the Sephiroth and Lucifer. Femininity, to be a man. Leo, the comedian on the Lotus Eaters, has said he thinks trans women are more women than women because they have to work at it.
Yeah.
He's exactly wrong. The whole point of being a woman, the whole point of womanhood, is it's about embracing. So if you work to be a woman, you're being a man. Men work to be men. Women accept who they are.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is women are, what would you call it? They are fertility. They are the soil.
So are you saying putting on makeup is unfeminine? Because you're not accepting.
Putting on makeup for the purpose of being a woman would be unfeminine. Yeah. Putting on makeup because that is who you are is. So denying yourself and not wearing makeup to be more feminine would not be feminine. But putting on makeup to be feminine is also not feminine. But if you want to put on makeup, then you should to be feminine. Because you have to embrace who you are. But it's accepting your body. It's acceptance. So womanhood is about acceptance. So in basically all mysticism throughout time, women are represented by the earth and men by the sky. Because the sky brings down rain. So men move towards something. They are the generative process. They are the action. Women are the thing that create. Women are the thing that have all the nutrients. Yeah. So you water the earth and the plant grows because the earth has everything it needs already. Whereas men need to go out and achieve. Yeah. And it all obviously ties down to just childbirth, basically. Like, it's pretty obvious where the analogies come from because men are the ones that instigate life, but women are the ones that create it.
I mean, even a woman stands there and look pretty and two men will punch each other over her.
Yeah, but she has to know to stand there and look pretty. Yeah. So it's and I mean, that's not all there is to being a woman, obviously.
No, but it's not all there is to be a man to punch the other guy to get the girl.
But it's see, that's funny, isn't it? I defend one but not the other. It's, I think it's just a modern thing. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Because to be macho is the thing, but that's what it's the height of our feminine heroes are the ones that are men. Like it's like you look at Tila from He-Man and whatnot, and it's all just ridiculous where it's all just men now. Let's end the episode. Yeah. But yeah, it's the mysticism throughout time has been women are the soil and men are the seed. Yeah. And it's because so it's about acceptance versus achieving. Yeah. Yeah.